What happens when 3 unmarked boats come screaming out of the darkness toward a billion-dollar warship and refuse to answer a single radio call? This is not a training drill. This is not a simulation. This happened in one of the most volatile stretches of water on Earth, and the next 40 minutes would test everything the United States Navy believes about discipline, restraint, and controlled aggression. If you want to understand what separates a professional fighting force from everyone else on the planet, you need to watch what happens next. Hit that subscribe button right now, drop a like on this video, and share it with anyone who thinks they understand how modern naval warfare actually works. Because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew. The Gulf of Aden stretches between Yemen and Somalia. It connects the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Every year, roughly 20,000 ships pass through these waters. Oil tankers, cargo vessels, military warships, fishing boats. The traffic never stops. Neither do the threats. Pirates have operated in this region for decades. They know the shipping lanes. They know the patrol patterns. They know that most commercial vessels are slow, undermanned, and completely defenseless. A speedboat with grappling hooks and a few armed men can take over a cargo ship in minutes. Ransoms run into millions of dollars. For years it worked. But on this particular morning, someone made a very serious miscalculation. The sun had not yet risen. The water was black. The horizon was invisible. A United States Navy destroyer was moving through the shipping lanes on a routine patrol. The crew had done this 1,000 times. Radar sweeps, radio checks, watch rotations, coffee in the Combat Information Center. Nothing unusual. Then the radar operator spotted something. 3 contacts, small signatures, moving fast, bearing in from the east at 12 nautical miles. In busy shipping lanes, you see contacts constantly. Most of them are harmless. Fishing boats heading home, ferries crossing between ports, tankers broadcasting their position on automatic identification systems. These 3 contacts were different. No identification signal, no navigation lights, no response to radio hails, and they were accelerating. The radar operator leaned closer to his screen. The contacts were not drifting randomly. They were moving in formation. One boat held the center line, aimed directly at the destroyer's projected path. 2 others spread wide on either side. That geometry does not happen by accident. Fishermen do not move like that. Merchant vessels do not move like that. Only people with a specific plan move like that. The officer of the deck picked up the radio and broadcast the first warning. Unidentified vessels approaching United States Navy warship. You are on a collision course. Alter your heading immediately. The response was static. Empty air. 3 boats still closing the gap. By now, the captain had arrived on the bridge. He did not rush in with panic or shouting. He stepped through the hatchway because he had already been listening on the passageway speakers. He studied the tactical display for several seconds without speaking. Then he gave his first order. Maintain current course. Log everything. Issue a second warning. That decision sounds simple. It was not. Turning away from an unknown threat signals uncertainty. It tells the approaching vessels that you are unsure of yourself. It invites them to push harder. Holding course while you gather information sends a completely different message. It says you are aware, you are prepared, and you are not intimidated. The second warning went out over the radio. Sharper language this time. More direct. Unidentified vessels, you are standing into danger. Turn away now. Still nothing. At this point, lookouts on the starboard side had visual contact. 3 dark shapes riding low in the water. They rose and fell between the swells, barely visible against the black ocean. They were small. They carried no obvious weapons. They looked almost insignificant compared to the massive silhouette of the destroyer. But size is not what makes a small boat dangerous. Speed is what makes it dangerous. Surprise is what makes it dangerous. The ability to carry explosives or boarding teams directly to a ship's hull is what makes it dangerous. In 2000, a small boat packed with explosives rammed into the USS Cole while it was refueling in Yemen. 17 American sailors died. That attack took less than 5 minutes from approach to detonation. Every sailor on this destroyer knew that history. Inside the Combat Information Center, the analysis continued. The center boat had adjusted its angle to line up with the destroyer's starboard bow. The 2 outer boats were spreading wider, one moving north, one moving south. This was a classic swarming tactic. The goal was to split the ship's attention across multiple threats, create confusion, and exploit any gap in the response. The problem with that strategy is that it only works against targets that cannot handle multiple inputs simultaneously. A destroyer can track incoming missiles, aircraft, submarines, and surface contacts all at the same time. 3 small boats at 30 knots were not complexity. They were just a Tuesday morning with bad intentions. The captain ordered the ship to heightened security posture. Throughout the vessel, sailors moved with purpose. Watertight hatches were checked and secured. Security teams took positions at designated stations. Heavy machine gun crews locked into their mounts along the starboard rail. Barrels pointed down. Fingers stayed off triggers. Eyes stayed fixed on the water. This is the part that most people never understand about military discipline. The hardest thing in that moment is not pulling the trigger. The hardest thing is not pulling the trigger when every instinct is screaming at you to act. The hardest thing is holding your fire while a threat closes the distance, waiting for absolute confirmation, exhausting every possible warning before you take an action that cannot be undone. That restraint is not weakness. That restraint is exactly what separates a professional military from a mob with weapons. A third warning went out, then a fourth. The range kept dropping. 9 miles became 7. 7 became 5. At 5 miles, a lookout spotted movement on the lead boat. Someone standing near the bow, holding something long in one hand. Too far away to identify clearly, too close to dismiss. The captain's response was immediate. Keep the cameras rolling. Document everything. That order reveals something critical about how the Navy approaches these situations. Video is not just evidence for after the fact. Video is a weapon in itself. Every ignored warning, every aggressive course change, every second of the approach captured on time-stamped footage with GPS coordinates. This creates a record that cannot be disputed. If something goes wrong, that footage tells the world exactly what happened and why. Searchlights snapped on, cutting white beams across the dark water and illuminating the lead boat. The men on board threw their arms up against the glare. For just a moment, the boat wavered. Then it corrected course and kept coming. A junior officer on the bridge said what everyone was thinking. "They are actually doing this," the captain answered without looking up from the display. "They are being recorded doing this. Now, here is something important. If you are finding value in this breakdown, take 2 seconds and hit that like button. It costs you nothing, but it tells the algorithm to show this video to more people who need to see it. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now." The next video in this series goes even deeper into how naval doctrine has evolved to handle exactly these kinds of threats. You do not want to miss it. At this point, the helicopter entered the picture. The MH-60R Seahawk is designed for anti-submarine warfare, surface surveillance, and close support. It carries thermal cameras, radar systems, and the ability to apply psychological pressure that no surface vessel can match. A ship moving through water has limitations. It cannot reposition instantly. It cannot get close to a small contact without risk. But a helicopter can orbit overhead, lock cameras onto a target from altitude, and make clear to anyone below they are surrounded. The order came down. Spin up the Seahawk. Prep for launch. At 2 miles, the helicopter lifted off the flight deck. Rotor wash hammered the stern as the aircraft banked hard toward the incoming contacts. Within seconds, the thermal camera locked onto the lead boat. 6 heat signatures, maybe 7. One figure crouched near the stern, another pressed against the bow rail, and something under a tarp at the back caught the sensor operator's attention. A folding ladder, fuel cans, heavy rope, a cylindrical object that could not be immediately identified. Those words went through the combat center like an electric shock. A ladder means boarding. Fuel cans mean extended range. An unidentified cylindrical object means you do not relax. The captain's orders remained steady. Do not assume weapons. Do not assume they are harmless. Keep recording. That is the knife edge. Lean too far in one direction, and a genuine threat reaches the hull. Lean too far in the other direction, and a warning becomes an international incident before sunrise. Every decision in that moment carries consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate situation. The Seahawk swept low over the lead boat, broadcasting warnings on the open frequency. Alter course immediately. You are approaching a United States Navy warship. Abort your approach now. The men on the boat looked up. One shielded his eyes from the rotor wash. Another pointed at the helicopter, then at the ship. That gesture confirmed something critical. These men were not lost. They were not confused by language barriers or navigation errors. They knew exactly who was watching them, and they pushed the throttle harder anyway. 36 knots. Range dropped to 1.8 miles. Gun crews on the starboard rail shifted their barrels into clear view, not raised to fire. Not tracking the boats yet, just visible. Deliberately, unmistakably visible. That kind of body language needs no translation in any language on Earth. The ship executed a controlled course adjustment, not a retreat, not a panicked swerve. A calculated maneuver designed to disrupt the attack geometry and block the straight-line path the lead boat needed. Thousands of tons of naval steel responded smoothly to the helm, churning white water along the flanks. The lead boat overcorrected. Its bow jerked hard as the driver fought the wake and the swells simultaneously. That reaction told the combat center everything they needed to know. They were still steering to intercept, even now, even with a helicopter overhead, a warship ahead, and their formation collapsing around them. 1.6 miles, 1.5. At 1 nautical mile, the captain gave the order everyone had been preparing for. Authorize defensive posturing. Ready all warning measures. Hold fire unless directly ordered. Every gun barrel came up, every gunner locked in, every camera tracked, every radio crackled with real-time position updates. The Seahawk hovered directly over the lead boat and broadcast one final warning. Turn your vessel away immediately. We are recording everything. You're creating a hostile situation. 3 seconds passed. 3 seconds is nothing in normal life. 3 seconds is everything in a confrontation like this. The driver broke. The bow snapped hard to the right, so hard the boat threw spray over its own crew. One man lost his footing and slammed against the cabin wall. Gear slid across the wet deck. The formation, already fractured, collapsed entirely. The northern boat bled off speed and turned. The southern boat hesitated for a moment, then followed. Inside the combat center, the report came through flat and factual. Lead contact is turning away. Speed dropping. Course widening. Nobody cheered. There was no time for celebration and no reason for it. One turn is not a surrender. The threat could reverse at any moment. The Seahawk maintained its orbit. The radar kept tracking. Every contact stayed marked and monitored. The captain's next order was immediate. Maintain overwatch. Prep the boarding team. Before we continue, we need your input. Drop a comment below telling us what you would have done in this situation. Would you have held fire this long? Would you have engaged earlier? There is no wrong answer, but we want to hear your take. This community has some of the sharpest tactical minds on YouTube, and your perspective matters. Also, if you are watching from outside the United States, let us know where you are. We see viewers from over 100 countries, and we want to know who is in this audience. A rigid hull inflatable boat hit the water. The tactical team moved with quiet efficiency. Helmets, body armor, communications equipment, cameras, restraints, every piece of gear checked and double-checked. No dramatics, no speeches. Just a team executing exactly what they had trained to do. The RHIB accelerated toward the lead boat, bouncing hard over the waves. Radio instructions followed. Kill your engines. Keep your hands visible. Do not move. The outboard motor on the lead boat dropped to idle. One by one, the other boats complied. The Seahawk held position over the one that hesitated longest, hovering close to make its intentions unmistakable. That boat throttled back. The boarding team came alongside the lead boat and swung aboard with precision. Controlled movement, complete situational awareness, every action filmed. Nothing touched until it was documented. The crew of the lead boat consisted of 6 men, soaking wet, completely silent. They were separated and secured without violence. The search revealed exactly what the sensor operator had suspected. Plastic fuel cans, heavy rope, steel grappling hooks, a folding ladder. Gear that has no legitimate explanation on a vessel charging a warship at 36 knots in pre-dawn darkness. No fishing nets, no catch, no registration documents that made sense. The other 2 boats were cleared by separate teams. The Seahawk held overwatch throughout. By the time the last suspect was secured, the sun had risen over the water. The destroyer resumed its course. No shots had been fired. No American sailors were injured. Not a single attacker had come close enough to touch the hull. Every second of the encounter was documented and preserved. Here is what that outcome actually required. It required radar operators who recognized an unusual contact pattern before it became obvious. It required officers who understood the difference between cautious assessment and dangerous hesitation. It required gun crews who could hold their fire under sustained pressure. It required a helicopter crew who could apply maximum psychological pressure without triggering a firefight. It required a captain who understood that the most powerful response available was not necessarily the loudest one. And it required a system, years of training, doctrine, procedure, and discipline that made those decisions possible. Here is what the attackers required: speed, surprise, the assumption that a warship would hesitate, the hope that confusion would create an opening, the belief that rushing hard enough would overwhelm a crew that was not ready. They were wrong on every count. The Gulf of Aden has seen encounters like this before, and it will see them again. The geography guarantees it: narrow shipping lanes, high traffic, political instability, and a parade of supertankers to warships. It is a place where miscalculations have consequences that echo far beyond the waterline. What happened on this morning was not a battle in the traditional sense. No weapons were discharged, no blood was spilled. But make no mistake, it was a confrontation. 3 boats with boarding gear, in attack formation, closing in darkness. They ignored every warning available to them. That is not ambiguous. That is intent expressed through behavior. And the response to that intent was something worth understanding deeply. Not a hair-trigger reaction, not a passive retreat. A calibrated, layered, documented application of force, beginning with the lightest possible option and escalating precisely, stopping the moment the threat stopped requiring escalation. That is what real military discipline looks like. Not in a training manual, not in a press release, in the water, in the dark, with the world watching. The attackers banked on chaos. They found order. They expected a soft target floating in the wrong place. They found a vessel designed to track missiles, submarines, aircraft, and surface contacts simultaneously. 3 small boats at 36 knots were not confusion. They were just a problem the crew had already prepared for. The most dangerous thing about the United States Navy in a moment like that is not the firepower or the radar. It is the fact that every single person on that ship knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and when not to. That is the part that never shows up in action movies. That is the part that wins.